Welcome to Leave No Doubt. I'm joined by Watford FC goalkeeper Ben HAMER. Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Good. Have you done anything like this before?
A couple of ones, yeah. I've done one with Richard Lee on the GK podcast. I've done a golf one as well. Golf and a football mix. I think it was more of a lockdown thing, so I did a few back then. But yeah, it's been about 2 years, mate. Since
Yeah, good. I mean, you speak well. Obviously, I've seen some of your interviews that you've done recently, and the last couple of days have been trying to create some notes. So, you know, I'm excited to, as we've just spoken about off camera, you've sort of seen football modern day and old school. So it'd be interesting to get your opinions.
Yeah, no, definitely,
yeah. To get started, mate, I do want to discuss your early career. You didn't sign for an academy until the age of 15. Am I right in saying that?
Correct, yeah. I was actually in the Centre of Excellence at Bournemouth when I was 12, up until 14. But then I got released at 14. So yeah, that was quite a hard one at the time because I thought it was all over. The dream was all over. Do you know what I mean? So, but then obviously, yeah, I went and played for the county through the schools, and luckily enough, there was a Reading scout there and got me a trial at Reading. And that's kind of how I ended up signing for Reading. Did a 6-week trial, and yeah, after 4 weeks got signed, and then yeah, like I said, the rest of this year I was there till I was 23 then. So yeah, it worked out well. I was lucky.
See, at that young age, 15 parents and probably players now, you get to the age of 14, 15 and you haven't signed for an academy, it looks like the end of school's coming and you're not assigned to a club. So it's actually quite an anxious period of time, and a lot of people would think that if they're not an academy at that age, they're not going to make it. I know the Centre of Excellence at Bournemouth was like a version of an academy. Obviously those Category 3 academies at the time were a little bit lower, but at the age of 14, 15, by not being in an academy at that point, were you worried that, because I've also seen in interviews that you've said, I always knew that I was going to play, always knew that I was going to be a professional?
Yeah, I think, I was worried, like 100%, but I always knew, because I got the opportunities through the schools were quite good with me. I think they realised that there was a couple of kids who had a bit of talent with football and rugby and whatnot, and they'd always, try and push the lads into the district trials, the county trials. But yeah, no, I think more so for me, I think I'd envisaged it since I was 5 years old. So in my head, there was no one way, hook or by crook, it was going to happen, whether it be through playing non-league or whatever. But I was from Somerset, mate. It's not a big catchment area. There was like Yeovil Town and Exeter, but they didn't have no scouts in the area. Do you know what I mean? So like Reading was 2 hours away. So to kind of get picked up with them was quite lucky, I think. But I think it just kind of when you picture those things happen, I think they come to you naturally, they draw to you, don't they? I feel anyway. It's like if anything in life, if I want something, I'll go over it in my mind all the time, and somehow it always ends up coming to you. I don't know how that works.
That law of attraction.
Yeah, maybe so. I've not read that, but I always even when I was playing my best football, days before games, I'd picture things that I'd be doing in the games. Do you know what I mean? And more often than not, I'd come off doing well. It's when you start changing the mindset, that's when it was going wrong. But yeah, I always had a positive mindset towards it. So yeah, I always believed it was going to happen.
I think if young lads, and especially parents, more so these days, will be probably interested in trying to find out what that process of being scouted as a kid looks like. Were you aware? Obviously, so you leave Bournemouth at 15. And you're playing for your counties. Were you aware that anybody was watching you, or that you were being approached by scouts? Who did approach you? Did they approach you or your parents? How did that work?
Yeah, not at all, really. I mean, we're playing for the county. There was 2 or 3 goalkeepers, so I was more focused on trying to become the first choice goalie for the county. So as long as I was playing for the county, I was happy that I was just playing. Do you know what I mean? So, but it was just by luck. A guy came up to me after the game and said, "Oh, you did well today. Let me take your home phone number and I'll give you a call in a week." And then obviously the guy called up in a week, and it was a scout for Reading, and he said, "Let me talk to your dad." So obviously passed him over to my dad, and he organised the trial with Reading through Nicky Hammond. I went up there, did a training session with the first team goalkeepers at 15. I was so nervous, and yeah, it was like I think at the time it was a keeper called Phil Whitehead, Jamie Ashdown, and Jamie Young, and obviously I was a 15-year-old skinny kid just coming out of school. They got a first team training session and I'm joining in kind of thing. And yeah, I think after the training session, Nicky said he was going to give me a 6-week trial. So played a few games, and then yeah, I did well in the games, and then yeah, got signed. So yeah, there was a lot of luck involved, but I think like catchment area is quite a big thing. But I think now with the way it's developed, there's more scouts now. The clubs, you know, filter out scouts. My town where I'm from now, I've been to visit a school recently, and they have feeder academies where the schools, if they have good talented kids, they normally get trials with the local clubs like Exeter or Yeovil. So I think it's a lot better now. I think back when I was growing up, it was definitely a lot harder to get spotted by a club.
So you think these days, obviously, that parents should believe if their child is good enough, they are going to get an opportunity?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think they can be quite active with that as well. I think if a local, say they're playing for a local football team and the coach says, look, I think your boy's quite talented, don't see why they can't contact the clubs that are local and say, can they come for a trial? So, you know what it's like now with like the analytical work where there's videos of everything now, people are videoing everything, so you're sending them in and you can see if someone's got a bit of talent, then more often than not they'll probably come for a trial. Like I said, like with the local kids from my school where I used to go to, like a lot of them are in the Exeter Academy now, which was unheard of when I was 15. So yeah, now I believe that, you know, the kids now have got a bigger opportunity if they're talented.
See, I want to ask you a little bit more detail about the trial period that you did with Reading. You're talking about you're 15 years old, you could give an opportunity to go and train prior to having a trial, and you go straight into working with first team goalkeepers. Like that's unique. Like, were you aware when you were asked, I'll come down to here for whatever time and train with us? Like, did you know what you were getting yourself into?
No, incredible, really, because, you know, I thought I'd go and join in with the academy because they just put the dome up. I don't know if you've been to the Madejski at the Madstad, but they had the dome at the top there, like at the top
just
of the
car park.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's more often than not where the young lads under 16s to under 10s trained on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night or whatever. So I just thought I was going there. Got told to go to Sonning on I think it was like just a rainy Wednesday or whatever it was. My stepdad, my mum took me up, and I turned up, and obviously I've just seen all the first team players. I'm thinking, what's going on here, kind of thing. And they've obviously got me some kit out of the kit room. Obviously I'm skinny 15-year-old, kit's so baggy, and I hate, like even now I hate wearing baggy kit. My motto is look good, feel good, play good. Do you know what I mean? So so if anything feels not right on me, I feel, excuse my French, like a bag of shit, mate. So yeah, it don't suit me. So yeah, went out, trained with them, but it's just one of them. Like, you think this is my opportunity, so you better do well, kind of thing. So yeah, like I said, just went for it, all guns blazing. It was really, really wet, horrible day, and yeah, he must have saw something in me, Nicky Hammond. So yeah, he obviously got me back for the 6-week trial, and I was training at the Dome with then the 16s, 15s, 14s, whatever, with the goalies on a Tuesday. And then I'd play on a Saturday for the under 16s it was back then. So yeah, no, it was a good eye opener, that first training session for sure.
You must have been nervous enough, as you know, at that age, going on trial, and you know, at Reading at that time probably still is, but as an academy, they were really elite. They had, you know, loads of good players have come through their academy.
Yeah, correct.
You must have been nervous enough as it was. Like, what were you going through when you turned up and realised you were about to train with the first team?
I don't know. I was always quite. I was always confident as a kid. I was always, if any situation I got thrown into, I used to like play up an age group in my local team, and you know, always used to do all right, hold my own. But yeah, and I think I just remember turning up, and I think I was more excitement than anything, rather than the nervousness. I was excited just to go out there and, like, you know, just have a roll around with the lads. Like, so you know, Jamie Young was doing quite well at the time. He was a young lad. Jamie Ashdown went on to play in the Premier League.
He's ex-Portsmouth, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then Marcus Hanneman was just coming in as well. So you know, again, that was good. It was good eye opener, and good to train with the first team goalkeepers. Yeah, really good experience.
What did you manage to take from that then to moving on, like both, you know, technically and mentally?
Well, I knew physically I was miles off it compared to them. Like, so obviously that was a big thing for me growing up. I was always a skinny lad, so that was something I always had to work hard on. But yeah, no, I think technically I watched how them lads dived, and you know, and Nicky was quite you know, quite one-on-one with me. Do you know what I mean? Like, helping me out with certain aspects of how to move my feet. Because I hadn't had no coaching really. I'd just go and play on a Saturday. So there was no technical coaching from the goalie coaches whatsoever. So from 15, that was my actual first experience of goalkeeper coaching. So yeah, it was an eye opener. He told me how to work my feet properly, how to, you know, use my hands, because it was just raw ability really. I think at the time that he'd seen, and he wanted just to like polish me up a little bit, I suppose. So obviously once that year then started, and I was going to them goalkeeping coaching sessions every Tuesday, I just felt myself becoming better and more natural at it. Whereas obviously before I was a bit more raw because I had no coaching. So that was definitely a big plus for me that year where I first come into the academy, because they did really work on me and spent a lot of time with me. So that was good.
I've read quite a lot of stuff and listened to quite a lot of podcasts myself. And Merson recently has been on something where he starts talking about if a kid hasn't been in an academy by the age of 9 or 10, then they've no chance. And it's not something truly that I believe in. And I've actually had a conversation recently with, I went home and one of my friends had approached me and said, I've got a son who's 9 years old, super talented, but his friend is in an academy, he's at an academy at Portsmouth, and my son isn't. What can I do to get my son in an academy? Because if he's not in there, then he's not going to make it. And I said to him, your son is 9 years old, so long as he's enjoying his football and he's progressing in that way, then don't worry. If he's good enough, somebody will come and give him an opportunity, as we've spoken about. I mean, you have lived through that process and managed to have an incredible career. I wonder if you could just shed some, or give your opinion on players and parents who listen to this who might not be in an academy from a young age. Why not to give up?
First of all, I think that's rubbish, because there's been plenty of examples of players who've come up through non-league. I mean, I played with one at Reading, Michael Antonio, and he was so raw when he first come into to Reading, and I think he must have been like maybe 18 at the time, 18, 19 maybe, and at the time you think, where's this guy come from, like Tooting and Mitchell and blah blah blah. And mate, he's gone on to be a Premier League powerhouse, mate. Plays up front, scores loads of goals, and I've seen him from at Reading at 18 to now, and that's a prime example of you don't have to be in an academy. He never was. He was at Tooting, I think from 12. I don't think he got much coaching there. I don't know. I couldn't say that, but when he come in for Reading, I can, from my own eyes, I could see that he was very raw. He had no coaching, and he went out on loan, did the loan circuit, which I'm sure we'll go on to, and that was obviously very beneficial for him, and that's where you grow your confidence, and he's obviously become a very good player. But as from the academy side of things and the parents, I'd give advice to the parents as well. Don't be pushy, because if the kids are enjoying it, let them enjoy it. One thing I remember I seen quite a lot at 15, 16 when I used to go to these sessions. There was a lot of pushy parents who'd shout on and not let the boys or girls, whatever, get on with it. And they'd be moaning to the coaches. First things first, the coaches get that from the parents. Your son ain't going to have a chance, because they're trying to coach your kids and make them better. If you're getting involved, they're more likely going to fail, because they don't like you as a person. Because I've seen it where it was good kids, and the parents were always shouting on, and the coaches hated it because they're just trying to make the kids better. So first of all, don't be a pushy parent. Let your kid enjoy it, and what will be will be. If he's good enough, he'll get there.
A couple of days ago, I was obviously here talking to Charlie, who's recently retired and is the under-18 manager at Watford, and he was saying, even in a short space of time, like you can tell the difference between a player who's got the weight of pressure on his shoulders from his parents and those who haven't. And pressure is something that I'm looking to get into you with, because at a young age, all throughout academies, and even obviously in a first team environment, but it's different when you're in an academy, because you're constantly being judged every training session, like every game. Is this child going to be able to make it? Is he going to be able to be in the first team? Will we be able to make money off him as a football club? And that pressure environment that kids are under, I think, is obviously enormous. And especially when a young guy goes on trial, like I've worked at academies and coached, and you see the sort of how nervous the trialist kids are and how difficult it is for them to be themselves. You went through that trial period as a 15-year-old and was obviously successful with it. What was it about? I don't know, you obviously said you're a confident child growing up and a confident player, but what was it about you, do you think, that managed to handle that pressure of that trial and that environment so well?
Yeah, I mean, I was confident in my ability as a footballer. I wasn't confident socially. So so when I came up to Reading, I felt like in our change room with the youth team, stuff like that, I was like the outsider, because I was from like Somerset. I sounded different to everyone else. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of lads from London that were in my academy team. So I used to get I wouldn't say bullied, but I used to get a lot of stick for my voice. So that used to make me go into my shell socially. So I struggle with that confidence-wise. But for me, the football side of things, that's what I wanted to do. So I could put that to one side because I knew to get to where I wanted to get to, I had to just train well every day, work as hard as I could, and eventually, if I'm playing well in the games, that's going to get me that pro contract that I want or that scholarship that I want. So I used to just concentrate on that. So yeah, no, it was definitely tough because at the end of the day, you're used to being in certain environments. Say, where I was at school, where I was probably the popular kid because I played football, but then I come into a new environment, and all of a sudden, I'm the kid who's different to everyone else. So so I kind of fighting battles with the social side of things, but with the football side of things, I was definitely confident doing the goalkeeper, if that makes sense. So I'd always try not let that side of it bother me, even though it did. I used to go home sometimes and be like, I don't know if I can deal with this anymore. Like, it's every day, blah blah blah. But I just thought, well, in 2 years' time, if I've done everything right and I get to that position, I won't have to see these guys again anyway. Because if they're not doing it right, why would I entertain that? I've got a destination that I want to get to, and nothing's getting in that way. So I think there's a lot of things that kids have to deal with at 15, 16, and obviously going into the youth team is a tough upbringing. I don't know what it's like now, but like I'm guessing you can say as well. When we were growing up, we were a similar age, so it was definitely more of an old school mentality, and it was a lot of it was not bullying, but banter, and yeah, like it was just tough. It was a tough school to grow up in, but it definitely made me stronger as a person. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that, mate. I played at Portsmouth when I was a kid, but I'm from just outside of Portsmouth, and the group of guys that were in his city, sort of from inside the island, at Portsmouth, they had their own way of doing things. They had their own sort of language almost.
And
I wasn't really in on that, and I could really relate to you, because most of those guys still my friends. Yeah, like I never felt bullied, but I never really felt
one of them.
So it was tough. How do you think kids can? I mean, you're a shining example. Hence the reason why we're speaking to you about how you got through that and how you managed to focus on the long goal instead of the short term, which is actually pretty unique, because as kids, so easily fixated on what's happening to you right there that it's very difficult to see a way out. Yeah. How were you able to do that, and what advice would you give to anybody who's in a similar situation?
I'd say they were the toughest 2 years of my life, for 100%. There were times where I'd come home and I'd almost be in tears, because I'd had it all day from the boys, like from the older lads, the first teamers, coming over to train with the first team, and obviously probably not physically not being up to scratch where with the other goalkeepers. So they were Premier League at the time, so things were going in, are you sewing your hands on today and stuff like that. So mentally for a kid, that's quite tough, because you want to be good and you want to be seen on a certain level with everyone else. So but I realised that was only temporary, if that makes sense. So for me, it was just every day I had to just get my head down, take the abuse, because I knew if I played well in the youth team games, I'd get to a certain point where, it is very hard to explain, because it was affecting me socially. But obviously the end goal, like I said, was to be a footballer. So I just had to, in my head, I just had to put up with that for 2 years, and then I could go and spread my wings. Then once I got that pro contract, I know I could then go out and play, and then obviously with that as well, naturally when you come into other teams and you're at a certain same level, as fickle as it sounds, if you're at the same level with them, you generally get more respect from them. So because you're playing with them every week, so then socially it becomes easier. So that was kind of how I dealt with it. I just tried to put it on the back burner, even though I used to ring my dad up and go like, this is awful, like I'm getting abused every day here. But in the end, it was worth it.
I think becoming thick-skinned, quite a lot of people are born that way, and quite a lot of people become that, and quite a lot of people don't, and they end up sort of out of the game. We're going to get through your career bit by bit, but you've obviously been incredibly successful. Did you create that thick skin, do you think that 2 year period where you're taking, they call it banter, don't they? But at the time, genuinely, it's so difficult to play with heavy banter coming your way, because even when I was a kid and joined in with Bournemouth's first team, you'd get bantered. Like if I was a first team player, I'd probably see it as banter. But when you're a kid, you take it so personal. Yeah, of course. Really puts weight on your shoulders. Start to play within yourself. Think I can't make no mistakes because he's caning me for having a bad touch or whatever it is. You managed to get through that 2-year period. Do you think in the long term that helped you?
Yeah, because I think that's when you take yourself the most serious at that age. You're wanting to impress everyone, and then for that to come your way, yeah, I think you're more sensitive. So once that 2 years was over, because that was the toughest period of my life, it was a breeze because it set me up for then going into men's football, and I felt like I was free then. I felt I could go into it, and I thought, well, I've dealt with that for 2 years. So what else can they kind of throw at me? Do you know what I mean? So that made me definitely strong. And obviously, when you then get the terraces, and then and anything they were saying, I was just like, oh yeah, bring it on. Like I've heard it all, mate. Do you know what I mean? So I think them 2 years, and to be fair, my coach, academy coach, Eamon Dolan, he passed away sadly, but. He was double tough on me as well, and he created that thick skin with me as well. He put me in some situations in training practices where, I'd almost hate him. Do you know what I mean? With the situations he put me in, but I knew that. Later on, I knew he was doing that to prepare me for men's football. So them 2 years, like I said, for anyone going into them, they will be tough, but it'll be worth it in the end. You just got to stick with it.
It's interesting that the debate that's sort of ongoing and quite popular about, are you born mentally tough or can you become mentally tough? I don't think there's a right or wrong between the two, because you certainly can be born mentally tough. I know loads of guys who, and you've probably known loads of players who just seem to take no shit. Yeah. No negative opinion can affect them. And then there's other guys who obviously it really affects them. And I think over time they realise, similar to what you have, I'm pretty similar. In that you get negative feedback or you take banter, and then eventually you realise actually it's not a big deal. Like it's not affected me as much as it should do, and it sort of you manage to perform off the back of that. It seems to be what you've done.
Yeah, I think no, don't get me wrong. There's times where I've been tough and not let it affect me because I don't take myself too seriously anyway. So any time where mate, we could be out I could be on a night out having a few drinks. I remember being out in Leicester and someone come up to me and going, "You're shit in goal," and I went, "Yeah, you're right, mate. I'm stealing a living." Do you know what I mean? I just have myself off because otherwise, I just don't like people who take themselves too seriously. Obviously, from the terraces, you get a lot of stick. The social media now, and there's been times where it has affected me where I think, "Oh, actually, are they right?" Do you know what I mean? So. It's a fine margin. Do you listen to it? Do you not listen to it? Do you take that out of your life completely? I think it's tough. I think when I first started playing, there wasn't any of that. So the only criticism I'd get would be off the terraces, which is largely just absolute rubbish. Do you know what I mean? So the only opinion I'd listen to was my manager and the players around me. So the only people I cared about impressing was them. But then obviously as social media came in, you started to then learn about the fans' opinions. It weren't just like you'd read the paper and you'd have your mark out of 10 with like a little free line comment or whatever. And sometimes you're like, he wasn't even at the game. Yeah. But I think obviously now we're more hyper aware of what fans think of us. Like big example with one of my former teammates at Leicester, Harry Maguire. He's getting so much stick at the moment, and I just think. What's the world coming to? Do you know what I mean? Just let the guy get on with playing football. Do you know what I mean? We all make mistakes. Get on with it. We live, and we move on. But I don't like the way it's going, especially in this country. There's a lot of negativity, isn't there? So I think it can be quite tough. But I know him as a person. And he's a very mentally strong guy. So pretty sure with him, it's like a water for a duck's back. But then at the end of the day, there's only so much someone can take, isn't there? So it's definitely a time now where we're highlighted with everything that we're doing. So I don't envy it whatsoever, because obviously when we first started, it wasn't any of it. You just go out there, you're on a Saturday, play your game, enjoy it, and then hopefully you've won and go home and celebrate over the weekend, and that was it, wasn't it? So it's a completely different time now.
For people listening to this, obviously we're recording this a day or a couple of days after the England-Germany game, and obviously, and Ben, you're talking about Maguire and the stick that he gets quite consistently. And I've actually been speaking to about with my own teammates the last couple of days and just saying it looks like this is the same guy who, people will say whatever they want about the amount of money that Manchester United play for him, but he's obviously an exceptionally gifted football player. He was like 12 months ago was in the Euros Team of the Year. He's obviously incredibly talented, but and we're talking about the top level, so it can affect. Probably the people listening to this are going to play at any level. We could be playing Saturday League, Sunday League, non-league, Football League. We're talking about one of the top professionals in the game. He's Manchester United captain, and it looks like all the information that he's been given about himself, all this abuse that he's taken, is just carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I actually watched the game the other day, and people want to cane him for making mistakes and stuff like that, but it looked like he was trying so hard to play well that obviously when things go against him, so I know obviously you know him much better than the perception of the public, but it looks like because he's putting so much effort in to change everybody's opinion, it's almost working against him in a way.
I can't speak for his mindset before the game because I just know him as a guy and I know how he is. But I think from my personal experiences, when you go into games thinking I can't make a mistake, that's obviously when it starts going wrong because you're not playing freely and you're trying to make things happen rather than letting the game just come to you naturally. And I've been there before, and it's not a nice place to be in. But obviously that comes from the heightened media perception and what they're putting out there constantly. So he's fighting against that rather than just going and enjoying what he does. So it's definitely a tough situation, and obviously everything he's doing at the moment is getting highlighted. So I don't think there's anyone that's had it as much as him recently, and I personally, I think it's got to stop really because it's too much. Like these guys are just human beings, just trying to go out there and win a game of football. Do you know what I mean? Enjoy themselves, and I think it's just unacceptable the way it's going.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And the something that actually we're probably going to talk about in a bit is something that's called this flow state where you actually start performing without putting too much pressure on yourself or thinking, and you just play and obviously the more pressure that he's under to, as you're right, not make a mistake, the more pressure he's under to be absolutely perfect. The less you get out of that mindset.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. The more chilled out and relaxed you are, and that's when you're in your most free flow state, and things just happen naturally, and you don't even think about what you're doing. So when you become under a little bit of scrutiny, and then you start to over-evaluate the situations, and then you're thinking, right, this next game I'm playing, and I can't make a mistake, and that's not a mindset to be in. It's complete wrong one to be in, and I've been in both ends of the spectrum.
And can you shed a little bit light then what the two different spectrums feel like? And
yeah, I mean, like for example, I was at Chalton. Chris Powell said, "You're my number one guy. You play no matter what," and then you just relaxed. I'm relaxed. Like he's just that's all I needed to hear, and you just go out there, and nothing's an issue. Just gliding around a goal. You've got no care in the world. Balls coming in, you're coming and taking crosses, no problem whatsoever. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I'm moving to Huddersfield. I'm fighting with another goalkeeper. I get a nod in the first game of the season. We play Chelsea, we lose 3-0. Next game we've got Man City away at the Etihad. Things are flying in all over the gaff. Your mind's working 100 mile an hour. You make a couple of mistakes. You come off the pitch getting absolutely tonked, and then the next game you're like, right, I've let in 9 goals in 2 games here. I can't make a mistake, and then that's when your mind starts caving in on you. So that's the two ends of the spectrum where one you're feeling like you're untouchable, no one can take your place, and then the next one you're just overthinking everything, scenarios. Oh, what if that ball comes in and I don't catch it cleanly? And I'd never been in that mindset before, and then all of a sudden I found myself in that mindset and I couldn't get out of it. So it's tough, and that is a complete smaller scale end of the spectrum to where Big Harry is at the moment, you know what I mean, with the scrutiny. So it's hard when you find yourself in them situations for the first time and how to deal with them. Obviously, I dealt with it in the end, but
how?
I spoke to a guy, Rob Blackburn. We're just chatting about different things, and it was simple, really, mate. It was like, can you control that? That's happened. No, I can't control that. There was certain aspects where I was technically wrong in the game and I made certain mistakes. This happened. Right, could you control that? No, I couldn't. So why are you worrying about it then? You need to control what you can control, which is allowing the game to come to you naturally. You do what you need to do. Don't go chasing things that you don't need to come chasing. Like, say a cross comes into the box and I'm thinking, it's never my ball, but I'm coming to try and affect it because I need to do something positive to get my credit in my bank up. Do you know what I mean? So that's when the mistakes start happening. So we had quite a long conversation about that, and I found myself getting confident again in training, and then I've never felt like that ever again since. So it was it was a good process to go through, because I was playing at a top level, and the players around me were better, and things were happening at a lot higher pace, and I think I just couldn't cope with it at the time. Because when I played for Leicester in the Premier League, I'd never let them down. I'd always had good games and been solid, and then all of a sudden I was playing in a team that was, probably no disrespect to them, a lot weaker than Leicester, and things were just happening at a quicker pace around me, and I just couldn't cope with it at the time. So and obviously the bad results to go with it. We all hate losing, don't we? So I'd take that home with me, and it was building up, and then in the end I had to go and speak to someone that knew what he was talking about. So and I'd never had to do that, and I was at 30. I think I was 31 years of age then. So from 15 to 31, I'd never had to. I'd never been through that kind of situation from when I was in that youth team space for 2 years, where it was a tough upbringing.
It's incredible for any player, especially at a young age, to break into a first team, especially for a goalkeeper, where obviously, as we know, there's only one position in a team. But you went out on loan to Crawley. It was in a conference at the time, which is a tough league, especially for a young guy. You played every game. I think you might miss one game that I read, and one player of the season. Like as first team experiences go, first team experiences go, like this, you can't get much better than that.
Yeah, I think it was. It was my first exposure actually. It was a good time. It was a great time actually. I went. So we finished the youth scholarship season. Got offered my first professional contract, and then I remember coming back at pre-season, and I remember just wanting to go out on loan. I just wanted to go out and play men's football.
You had made that decision.
Yeah. I spoke to Eamon Dolan, the academy coach, so I wanted to go out on loan. Nicky Hammond, the director of football at the time, I think he was quite keen for it to happen as well. But as an 18-year-old who's not proven, it's hard, isn't it? No one's gonna touch you. So we got to a week before the start of the season, and Eamon Dolan called me and he said, "Right, I spoke to John Hollins at Crawley." So he was the manager at Crawley at the time. They got a minus 10-point deduction. They're in administration. They can't pay any money for anyone. So they've got a friendly game on the Tuesday before the Saturday. He goes, "You're going to go down there. You're going to play in a game. So you're basically on trial." I said, "Yeah, no problem. Don't care. Like, I just want to go and play. Like, I don't care what level it was at." So I've gone down there, done the trial, done all right in the game, and then they signed me on loan on the Thursday or the Friday, the day before the season started. Down at Crawley, we had our training ground was it was a 4G on the other side of the road at the stadium. So we trained there on the Friday, and then I remember we had Russian and Diamonds at home on a Saturday, and they had a big striker called Leo Fortune West, and he was a big, burly, like angry, old school centre half. Like I'd seen him play for Cardiff back in the day and stuff like that. And I remember actually going to the game quite confident. I was just buzzing to be playing men's football, because that was obviously what I wanted to be doing. So I remember lining up in the tunnel, and I seen all these, like, because I was skinny, mate. I was like, back then we weren't really getting taught how to do gym work and stuff like that. So I was never really building my strength from 16 to 18. I was just a beanpole really. So so I'm in the tunnel and I've seen this Leo Fortune Wesley, like he's up front. So if they're getting corners, I know he's that old school. He's going to try and scare me basically. And I made a decision, like, before the game started, like anything that's around, I'm coming. Like, I don't care. I'm coming for it. Like, so I'd already in my mind knew I was going to be positive in the game. So everything I do is positive. So crosses coming to the box, I'm coming and punching them. I'm trying to catch it. I'm getting fouled. Got to the end of the game and we won 1-0. And I was battered. Like, ribs were in, shoulder, like everything. Do you know what I mean? Well, I've just been hammered, like, from crosses and stuff like that. And I remember just thinking, that's a box ticked. Like, I've ticked that off. Like, I can do this. I can match it up with, like, these guys here, these blokes. So I actually love the feeling of that that non-league, and you could tell like everyone was dying for 3 points because you know these guys got to pay the bills, mate. Like, they're not getting paid loads of money. So you know everything. It all meant something to everyone on the football pitch. So obviously, them next 3 games, we win the next 2, and we've like pretty much, and we draw the 4th one away at Woking. So after 4 games, we wiped the 10 points off. So obviously, everyone then can like sigh of relief, and we can crack on now. So, but loads of things about that season, what I was exposed to was like so not professional, you know. But I was almost like trying to become a part of that fraternity. So, you know, I wouldn't say I was naive, but after training, I'd be in a car school with the lads from Reading. Like, listen, I won't earn great deals, mate, so I'd have to get in a car and we'd have to share lifts, you know, share the petrol, because like Reading to Crawley is an hour and a half or whatever it is. So on the way home, we'd be going into McDonald's drive-through and having McDonald's for lunch after training, which that's how right. It can't happen, can it? You know, it's poor, isn't it? So that's the kind of thing I was exposed to in the conference. But Reading were in the Premier League at the time, and Crawley didn't have a goalie coach. But because I loved being a part of that team, and you know, seeing what it meant and how to, you know, play men's football, I didn't want to go back to Reading. I wanted to stay there. So I just said to them, yeah, they got a goalie coach. He's decent. Blah blah blah. This and that. But it was only me and the sub goalie that were, and I think he was the same age as me. We were training each other. But because I was playing these games Saturday, Tuesday. That's what I wanted to do. So it was an eye opener, but it was a really good first year experience of men's football. Some parts how not to do it, and other parts of what it meant to get 3 points. And obviously these lads have got bills to pay. You know, me as well at the time. You know, I wasn't earning great money. So yeah, it was a great introduction, I think, to men's football. So no, I was really like proud of that. Yeah.
You speak about football really well, but especially when you were a young guy, wanting to go out on loan is something that doesn't really happen. A lot of guys at that age feel comfortable in their academy environment. You could, like you said, you could have easily stayed in that Premier League environment with a coach and not gone out there and exposed yourself to that. When you were there, you wanted to immerse yourself in it, which is, you know, you could have easily said, I'll play in the games, but I'll spend my time at Reading. Did you have... Like, I'm interested in how you managed to develop this, you know, your mentality and what you wanted to get out of the game. Like, did you set goals? Because to go off your own back at that young age and say, look, I want to go on loan, is pretty unique, actually. It's not. It doesn't always happen. Usually loans come when a 18s or 23s manager will say, oh, look, this is an opportunity for you to go and play. How were you sort of wise beyond your years at that age?
I think I knew from a young age what I wanted to go and achieve. So I knew, like at that time, my goal was I wanted to play in the Premier League. So for me, each year, in my head, I had to secure the level. So I had to go conference. Right, I've done that. I've performed well at that standard. Next year, I want to go to League 2. I want to perform well at that standard. And so on, and keep gradually, you know, like stepping through the ladder, kind of, so to speak. Because I think that's how you can. I think that's the best way to kind of gauge. Listen, there's obviously outstanding talents out there who can go from 16 straight into the Premier League, but I knew I wasn't that, because I knew physically I wasn't great as a youngster, and I probably wasn't going to be for a few years to come. So I felt like I had to gradually build that. So every year after the season finished, I was knocking on Nicky Hammer's door saying, and by the way, he's the one who got me in at 15. He was director of football. I was saying, like, I want to go on loan again. Like, I'm constantly forcing the issue. Whereas I think at that time, I think younger players were more inclined to do that. They wanted to do that. Whereas now, obviously, when the 23s academy setup came in, I think it really affected the younger players, because it's all too nice for them, and you know, they're like you just mentioned there, they're happy in the comfortable environments that they're in, and they don't want to go test stuff because say, for argument's sake, at Leicester, they're in the under 23s at Leicester. Some of these kids think they're Premier League players. They're not. Like, I didn't think like that. I knew I wasn't a Premier League player at Reading. I knew I had to go and prove myself, and I think the problem these days are that some of the kids are brought up, they believe that they're at that level, when no, you're just at that club. Like, you've got the potential to play for this club, but you think you're there already. So no, go out and play and find the level. Yeah, all right, you've done well at that for 6 months. Right, go to the next level. Keep going. I I think they're just in the safety net. I think that's what I call it anyway. The safety net where, okay, I'm okay here. Like this is comfortable. But then I think when you get to 23 years of age and you haven't played a league game, where do you go? Like no manager's really gonna touch you. So I think I speak to one of the young goalkeepers here. He's 18. I said, look, best thing you can do is try and go alone. And he says, but what level? Like if I can't get League Two or League, no, go Conference South, go the one below that. Like it doesn't matter as long as you're playing men's football. You find out about yourself, and then once you've set a mark there, made a mark, people will take notice then, and then you'll find that you get next, and that's what happened to me. I carried on climbing the ladder gradually, and eventually got there.
I think that's great advice, mate. It's especially when we started, especially in our youth teams, under 18s, first team. There was no bridge in between. If you weren't ready to be involved at 18, then you got left by the wayside. Yeah. And especially now at my level, obviously in the National League, we do get some of the young guys from these top elite academies coming to us on loan who want to sort of prove themselves and see if they can play at the level. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes you say like, "Oh, how old are you?" Like, "I'm 21. I'm 22. Never been involved in the first team." So it's a crazy age So it's a long time to go from under 18s to a first team environment without ever really experiencing playing a game.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think I look at even, like say here at Watford, I look at some of the 23s and say some of them are 22 or whatever, and I'll say, well, look how many league games they got, and if you ain't got any, I'm thinking, I had 200 games by the time I was 22. How's that like helping you? It's stunting your development. If anything, I think you need to expose yourself to it. And not have an ego. I mean, like I think when I was coming up through, I never had an ego anyway because I probably always a little bit more pessimistic. Even though I was confident in my ability, I was pessimistic in the fact that I didn't think I was good enough to play in that Premier League team at Reading. So I thought, right, I need to go and do this. I need to expose myself to that. I need to prove to them that I can handle it. And then I come back, and if I'm still not good enough to be in that team, I'll go out again to the next level. So that's kind of how my mind worked with it, if that makes sense.
Almost prove to yourself in a way as well.
Yeah. I constantly wanted to, I just wanted to do that. Personally, I think that was the best process. I think that's the best process to go and do, unless you're absolutely exceptional and you can go straight into the first team. If not, don't sit around the academy. I think it's the worst thing you can do. We had the reserves at Reading as well, so we'd also be exposed to good first team players because usually, more often than not, the lads who didn't play on a Saturday would play in a reserve game on a Tuesday at the stadium. In the local reserve league or the Premier Reserve League. So I remember playing Arsenal when I was 18, and I was a scholar, but I think the second choice keeper couldn't play, so I ended up playing. I was playing against Walcott, Lupoli, Toure, Song. Trying to think who else was playing in that team. Giroud. These are like first team players for Arsenal, and I was getting exposed to that. So I was playing against good first team players. Well, I think now the 23s they're not getting exposed to that because these first team players who ain't playing the 23s game. That's why I think the reserves was really good, and I just think now with the 23s they're just not getting quite exposed to that calibre of player, and I think it just comes a bit too comfortable for them.
I'm interested to find out, mate, with these because you know after the Crawley season you did go on loan. You went to Brentford. Obviously, did you get promoted out of League Two that season?
No, sorry. I went for the year after Crawley. I went for 8 games, 10 games, and. Again, it was a level up, and I'd made a mistake in one of the games. So I played 7 games, done well. I made a mistake in the 8th game, I think it was, and then he brought his original first team keeper back in. So again, good because I got to deal with disappointment. So they brought him in from Hibernian. He got injured in pre-season, so I then came in from Reading. Luckily, the goalie coach at Reading knew Andy Scott, the manager. So Terry Butcher was there as well at the time, and I think Andy Scott knew a lot of the lower league type players, but obviously he needed a keeper, so I got quite lucky with that. But then obviously I've came in, and I think I managed to impress Andy at the time, and he obviously kept me in mind after that because I'd made a good impression. I went back after 8 games, I think it was in October, and then got called back again in January. So Simon Brown at the time got injured again, and they called me back again for the rest of the season. So I then played the rest of the season, kind of growing, making mistakes here and there, which I think is quite normal for a 19-year-old goalkeeper. And I think he then took a real big chance on me, bringing me back the year after as the number 1 on loan for the season. And that's when we got promoted. And because he he gave me that belief that I was the number one, and I was going to be playing every week. I know I became consistent, and I was starting to make less and less mistakes. So that was also a great season. Went on loan again, done the League Two, and won the league then. So I think that was my third year of senior football. So that was a great experience.
I've had Andy Scott as a manager once before, like years and years ago. He was the manager of Aldershot. I went there on loan, and I'll never forget it. We had Wrexham away in our first game, and as we're walking out on the pitch before the game to have a look at the grass or whatever, he comes over to me, and I hadn't really met him or spoken to him before. He said, "Joe, how far can you kick it?" I said, "Well, like quite far, I suppose." So he went, "Good, you're on goal kicks today," and because his name Glenn Morris was the goalkeeper at Aldershot at the time, had a bad thigh, but I was like, he could still play, just couldn't kick.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I had to do the goal kicks in this game, like,
and then sprint.
It was the most distance I've probably covered in any game.
Yeah, if you had a GPS on, mate, you'd have been through the roof, wouldn't you?
It was way before
Terry
GPS.
Terry Bullivan and Scotty was it at the time.
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, I had them at Brentford for a couple of years. Yeah, they were really good with me. Yeah, to be fair, yeah, really helped me out.
These the loans though, mate. Obviously that you went to Brentford and experienced that League Two. The next year you went there as number one and got promoted. You went back the year after in League One and obviously experienced that as well. So I was just saying, you're ticking off all these levels that you felt capable of playing at and were proving to people that you had done that. Was there ever a point where going out on loan for you became, and obviously because you kept going to Brentford, did there ever come a point you think like, I'm going back to Brentford, like I should really be playing at Reading, like I've proved I'm good enough? Yeah.
So after that promotion season, Brendan Rodgers took over at Reading, and he made me second choice. So Federici was playing, so he wanted me to sit on the bench, and we had young Alex McCarthy coming through as well at the time. So he wanted Alex to go out on loan and get exposed to games. So I think he went on loan to Yeovil. So I've sat on the bench for the whole season, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, mate, because I just experienced 3 years of playing pretty much every week. So then sitting on the bench every week. So at that age, once you're used to it, I was trying to think. I think it was just frustration, mate. So I was frustrated at being on the bench every week. And but if I look back now, I wasn't ready. Federici was miles better than what I was at the time, and deservedly so should have been playing. But at the time, I was that confident in my own ability. I've just won League Two with Brentford, and obviously the Brentford team. I've come back there with full of confidence, thinking, all right, I'm going to play at Reading now, which obviously.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the case. That's all. Yeah, just I was too confident in myself, and so. Yeah, that got me back up a bit, I think. So then we done that season, and then the season after, they wanted to do it again. They wanted me to sit on the bench again, and obviously I was like, nah, I can't do it. I can't do this for a second season. And Alex went on loan to Brentford, but then something had happened, and he came back, and I swapped with him. So I've obviously gone back to Brentford for another spell, and I then go through 10 or so games where I'm doing all right, playing okay for Scotty, and then I was late for a game. And he dropped me. He dropped me when I got there. He said, "You're not playing tonight." And obviously, and me and him had a fallout then because I was doing okay. And then Richard Lee came in and performed very well. So that was me out of the team then. So I think I stayed there for another month or so, and then I went and saw Scott. I said, "Look, this isn't working out. I'm gonna have to go back to Reading and look for somewhere else to go because I've not come here not to play because I've been in that situation at Reading, and now I've come to Brentford, played, and then." Through my own fault, I was late for the game. Should have allowed myself more time to get there. I could have controlled that, so I had to take responsibility for it. And yeah, went back to Reading, and then Exeter luckily gave me a call in January. I went down there and played the rest of the season down at Exeter. So it worked out in the end. Played some more games, and then yeah, like I said, come back to Reading again, and I'm still not breaking in. Federici's still doing well there. So that was when I hit the crossroads with Reading. It's like, well, this is the third season now, and I'm still nowhere near it. I need to leave. I need to leave on a permanent. And I think I still had a year left. And then Ben Roberts at Chalton, who's the goalie coach at Chelsea now, he spoke to Sal Bibbo, Reading coach, and it was like, right, what's he doing? Is he available? So I think the club realised Brian McDermott and Sal Bibbo and Nicky Hammond, I think they came together and was like, yeah, look, I think we're killing the kid now because he's not gonna play here. They probably wanted me to because I was an academy product, but Federici was just better than me. So it was just like, well, they ain't going to play me over Fed. So that was when the crossroads came, and then I moved to Chalton on a permanent then for 3 years.
And like a big word used a lot, mate, for goalkeepers especially, is consistency. And you obviously had that at Brentford during the period of time that you were there, and I can completely understand the frustration at going back to Reading and not playing for a year. I'm super interested in the mindset, obviously, that you're frustrated, but a lot of goalkeepers could go back to, were they in a Premier League at the time, or did they Championship? So they didn't really get to the Championship. But again, like, it's a comfortable environment to be in. Like, I'm a great club, great training environment, good players. Like, I'm number 2, but I'm not going to play, but I'm all right. A lot of people would take it easy and be okay with that, but you weren't. Like, what's...
Nah, I think because yeah, like I said, when I said to you earlier, I wanted to play in the Premier League, and I thought, I ain't going to play in the Premier League if I'm sitting on the bench for 3 years. I'm just not going to get there. So
that ambition was still mad.
Yeah.
Focus.
I was mad for it. Yeah, I was mad for it. So I was so determined to do it. So I thought, right, what's the best situation for me to do now? Right, I've got to drop down a league, I've got to do League One again. Hopefully the team that I'm in does well, and I'll do well, and we can be successful together. So obviously, yeah, I'll go to Chalton, and lo and behold, we get promoted first season. Like, I think we got the record points in the league, and it was like a really good side. And at that point, I think I was 23, and we'd won the league twice. And you think it's easy, like you think it's easy, because it doesn't happen, does it? So I'm 23 now, League One, League Two, and obviously alongside the teammates, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this football luck's all right. But obviously, yeah, since then, mate, you soon realise that it isn't that easy. It's tough. I've just got lucky. So yeah, obviously we went up to the Championship then, and then that's when I got to test myself at Championship level. So that was a really exciting time for me again, because I was part of the team that had got promoted, and I'd earned my right, in my own right, to then go and have a chance to play in that team in the Championship. So yeah, that was what was obviously came next.
I'm really interested to know, mate, because, like, you played almost every game in that, or probably every game in that League One season, and then in the next 2 years in the Championship, you basically played in every game there as well. We've touched on it already about this flow state, and you gave an example of your time at Chalton. Now the manager told you number 1, and that made you feel great and made you feel comfortable. I wonder if you can just elaborate on that a little bit, and that word consistency over that 3 seasons. You managed to find that. You're in a super successful team. You're obviously playing very, very well. What was it about that 3 years, do you think? Like, what was your football lifestyle like at that time? Like, how was your mindset? Like, what was it that, trying to get into that flow state of just playing with no pressure?
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I think, yeah, I was just double confident, mate. I was just going into every game just feeling free. I'd go into most lads before games are just getting zoned in before games. Yeah, I remember just going in before games and just being laughy and jokey, not really serious, because I knew I'd prepared right during the week, during training, that when it came to match day, I knew it was just all falling into place for me, and it was weird. It was just, most weeks it was happening, and then when it did come, there was a time in my second season where I was having a bit of a rough patch. I made a couple of mistakes in a couple of the games, and Powley would just pull me to the side and be double honest with me. He goes, "Look, listen, mate, I'm pulling you out for the next game. Like, I think you're a bit bogged down at the moment. You made a couple of mistakes. I'm bringing the other lad in." And then I was like, "Right, okay, he's been honest with me. Like, you've had a couple of bad games. Come out," because I would have missed a few games in one of them seasons, and after 2 or 3 games, he's like, "Right, is your head right?" I'll be like, yeah. He goes, "Right, you're back in on Saturday," and I'll be like, "Wow, that's incredible." He's just given me so much confidence, and when I was having a bad time, he was just honest with me. He said, "Look, you ain't doing all right in a minute. You've made a couple of mistakes. You don't seem yourself. Go away and get your head sorted. Like, even if you need to go out, just go out and burn some steam off, whatever. Like, it was what it was." And I'll then come back, and he'd be like, "Right, you're back in," and I'll be like, "Right, Buzzing, I'm going to run through a brick wall for you and do whatever I can to keep the ball out of net for you," because that's the confidence the man gave me. So that was probably my best period, because he was just trusting me to play every week. And when you're doing that, that's when you find when you've got the confidence of the manager and the confidence of the teammates, I think everything just falls into place, and you haven't really got to worry about it. You don't even have to think about it during the week. You just do your training, do the bits that you need to do, and then on a Saturday, relax. It just comes naturally.
Not everybody listening to this, who plays will have a manager that makes them feel that way. A lot of managers make players' lives not necessarily difficult, but it won't certainly make them feel as comfortable as what yours did with you. How do you think guys who don't have a relationship with a manager like you did then can go about trying to get into the, we'll use the word flow state, trying to get into that routine of playing with loads of freedom and without pressure?
I've been there as well, with the opposite side, where the manager's just not having me one bit. His opinion of me was that I was a good goalkeeper, a good person, and I could do a job for him. I went and played for Leicester, and the manager there didn't think I was a good person and didn't think I fitted into his plans. So I felt both sides of the coin. But when I felt that, I spoke to the manager at Leicester, and he said he didn't feel like I was better than the other goalkeeper. So I was like, right, okay. So what am I going to do about that? I work hard. So I come in training. I'm not going to go around there and be a bad egg around the place, because who's that helping? It's negative for me. It's negative for the people around me. If I want to play in this Premier League team, I want to have the opportunity, I've got to show them that I'm ready for that opportunity. So I went the other way, working harder and harder and harder. So I'd be in gym doing my extra work. I'd be outside, giving my all every day. I don't think I ever turned negative at one point during that time. I think that's that, and it carries a long way, because at the end of that 4 years at Leicester, I got offered another two-year contract, and I'd hardly played a game. So I think that goes to show that you're doing something right around the place. Listen, that manager might not be there in 6 months' time. So what are you going to do? Waste your time doing nothing and moping around, being negative? Like, how's that gonna influence you or influence your teammates? So if he's there for 2 years, keep working hard. An opportunity to go on loan might come about, but you need to be ready and be in that elite space to be able to compete with them elite players if you want to do that. So yeah, for me, you just got to carry on going about your business. You can't mope around and be negative, because it's just going to influence you negative, and at the end of the day, everyone in the building is going to think you're an absolute belter. So yeah, I think I've covered it there, really, mate, to be honest.
Yeah, you smashed it. I mean, and it's almost perfect that the next part of what I wanted to get into, I've actually got it written down there as being a good teammate, and it's something that, on this podcast, talk about people's experience when they've played consistently. But as a goalkeeper, as you've alluded to, sometimes you've got into a real nice rhythm, and sometimes as a number 2 goalkeeper you haven't. But one thing that that is evident in all the interviews that you've done, in interviews that you do with other players, in stupid stuff like social media accounts, and you're obviously a popular guy in a changing room. You've got a lot of friends in football, and you're able to remain a positive influence on other people when you're not necessarily in the team. Like, not everybody is like that, and obviously, as you say, like, sometimes it's allowed you to maybe earn a contract that you might not have got if your personality was completely different. Yeah. Like, is that something you've been aware of, or is it just sort of like naturally how you are?
I just think it carries a long way. If I'm playing and I've got a teammate who's not playing and he's being brilliant around the change room, he's being positive in training, I respect that guy so much more than the guy who's trying to disrupt the training session. I just think, I feel like I've always been that way, because I don't want to be that guy who the lads think, oh, he's being a prick, like he's trying to ruin the session, or he's not helping us. And I just don't think it carries any weight or has any longevity, really, because I think most lads that I've seen who are like that, they're out the door within 6 months. So yeah, I noticed pretty early on in my career, lads who were negative when they weren't playing, they don't stay around for long, and end up falling by the wayside. So that was a lesson I learned probably when I was at Reading, when there was lads being negative, and they wouldn't have, the careers would be finished pretty soon after, because no one, coaches, managers, don't really want to touch them, because coaches and managers need positivity around the training ground at all times if you want to be successful. So
I can almost relate to that. Well, I can relate to it, because I never actually, in the whole period of time, I end up being, including new team, I end up being a Bournemouth player for like 8 years. Left the summer they were promoted to the Premier League, but only played about 50 games in that time. The manager, in hindsight, I didn't know that at the time. You know, I sort of was trying to be a good person, but also frustrated I wasn't involved. And a lot of times I look back and sort of regret that I didn't leave, so I could have played more football. But when I flip it, I think I was trying to be a good person, I was trying to train well, I was trying to be a good teammate, and possibly that might be the reason why I ended up being involved as much as what I was. Even though, you know, I never really played loads of football.
Yeah. No, listen, I think it's a great trait. Obviously, we play football because we want to play. We don't want to train all week to then not be involved on the match day, because ultimately that's what gives us the buzz. Do you know what I mean? That's what I get my buzz from, playing on a Saturday in front of thousands of people. Really, that's my buzz. Training all week isn't, but I know it's something that needs to be done. And if the lads around me are going to be successful, then if I'm going to have any amount of input into that, then I'm going to have to be positive. And I think I've always been like that. Don't get me wrong, I've been moody when I've not played, and I've not always been happy. But I think you're allowed to be like that 1 or 2 days sometimes. You know what I mean? After a decision where you don't quite agree with it. But I think in the long run, yeah, if you want to have any sort of longevity, and like I said, that you were there for a long time, so I think it's a positive, and yeah, it's a positive on your personality that someone wanted to keep you around for that long. Do you know what I mean? It's a good.
So long as it's not like a consistent personality trait that you're negative. I totally get what you mean. Like, obviously, manager's not going to drop you, and you're going to say, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're never going to be like that, mate.
Yeah.
No, never going to be like that. Listen, I'll first say I absolutely detest, hate not playing, because that's the only reason I do this is to play. Like, I've come here now, and I've signed for Watford, knowing that I'm not going to start the season or going to play, but in my head, at some point, I'm going to play. So that's what keeps me going, if that makes sense. So there's a great bunch of lads, and I try and be as positive as I can around the place. Yeah, listen, you do feel like a spare part at a wedding sometimes, mate, when you're not playing, because at the end of the day you want to help the lads out and be playing at the level that they're playing at. But if you're not, how are you going to affect it positively? Well, first of all, by being good around the place, being a positive character in the change rooms, going out of training, and and working hard. Because if you don't, then what really is the point?
Totally agree, mate. And but I want to flip that. You sort of played that role at Leicester as being part of an incredibly successful team, without maybe arguably playing as many games as what you wanted to, but you did play ultimately in the Premier League, and we've spoken about that was your goal. I know one Champions League appearance, and then obviously played in the Premier League again for Huddersfield after that. What I'm interested to know is, I always ask people who have success how they manage to deal with that success. What does it do to them? And I'm almost positive that I'm not going to ask you this question. You're going to say, it was enough for me. But when you did manage to achieve that goal that you'd set your sights on for so many years, what happened to you?
When I joined. So I'd always, for some reason, in the 2 years I was at Chalton and in the Championship seasons, I'd always had a good game against Leicester. I don't know why. And off the back of that, I was on a free contract, and they signed me off of the back of that. So again, right place, right time. Leicester getting promoted, me playing well against them every time I played against them. Because I don't think they beat us. I don't think, apart from maybe a couple of months before they actually got promoted. That was the first time they beat us in the 4 games, and so I've gone there. I thought, right, okay, I'm sniffing it out. I'm getting closer to it now. And obviously, you've got Kasper Schmeichel there, who's part of the furniture at Leicester. Unbelievable goalkeeper. World-class trainer every day in training. Trying to get to his level was almost near on impossible. He was that good. And he gets injured. He gets injured in the start of September, which is we're 3 games into the season. So right, the opportunity's here. So we're playing Stoke away, and I remember again going into that game just so positive. And I think they had Crouch, Walters up top. All the big
top boys,
the big
Stoke team,
Stoke team, yeah. And obviously their strongest point was set pieces, throwing balls into the box. So I knew that was coming that day, and I think it took me a bit back to the Russian and Diamonds game from when I was playing in the conference, and they were just, balls were coming in left, right and centre, but I was just coming for it. I was confident. I was coming for everything, taking crosses, punching stuff. Big Peter Crouch trying to beat him to the ball and punching stuff away, and I remember coming off after the game, 1-1-0, kept a clean sheet, Premier League debut, and I was just like, right, I've done it, I've got there. So then now I'm thinking consistency. Now I want to do this on a consistent basis. Like that's the feeling I got straight after that game. Right, I've ticked that off now. And now I need to do this consistently. And that, again, that's how confident I was. So I'm 25, 26 at this point, and obviously Casper's out injured. I think he's out for another 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm thinking, right, I've done well here. I'm going to keep the shirt. That was very naive. That's very naive, mate. Because obviously, big man's part of the furniture. So next game we've got Man United. Casper gets fit. He's fit again. Straight back in. So I've come in for a 1-0 victory. Team done well. First victory back in the Premier League. I'm not saying it was down to me. But I'm saying,
of course, a big part of it.
I was a big part of it, right? So the dejection I felt on that Friday when I knew I wasn't playing after I'd just come in, that was probably one of the best, I'd say all-round performance is probably one of the best games I've played, you know, because it was just a strong, solid game. And for them to be not selected for the next game, it was heartbreaking, mate. And it really knocked my confidence. That was the first time I really had my confidence rocked. And we come in, beat Man United 5-3, unbelievable game at the King Power. And then again, Casper continued to play, did well, and then he got injured again in that first year in December, and I went on to have another run of 8 games then after that. But as I said, soon as he's back fit, I was out the team again. So that's when I quickly realised that I wasn't going to be able to play at a consistent amount of games for Leicester. So that was really tough. That was a really tough time. That was because I didn't know how to handle it, because I'd been used to, if I'd come in and done well for teams, I'd continue to play. But obviously I quickly learned that it wasn't going to be the case there. We obviously ended up that season, I must have played 8 or 9 games, I think, in my first season, which I didn't expect I was going to do. But because I'd had a taste for it, I wanted more of it. Do you know what I mean? So it was obviously then going into the second season, they brought Mark Schwarzer in, and Claudio Ranieri took over that second season. I was then pushed back to number 3. So off the back of playing 8-9 games and doing, I thought I did quite well for Leicester. I then found myself as a third choice goalkeeper. So then, it just shattered me confidence. I didn't really know where to go from there, because I'd found myself, got to the top level, but I couldn't get to where I wanted to be playing a consistent amount of games. So that was like, a tough time, I'd say.
So to listen to you talk about it, mate, super tough, because in one breath, it's almost incredible that you've been given the opportunity to reach the goal that you've sort of always had your sights on, and the way that you approached that was, I'm going to be super positive. You end up performing incredibly well, and like usually, you'd probably expect to stay in the team, but like you say, it was sort of a different environment where Schmeichel's, he'd obviously been named number 1, and there was probably a part of you, having been in that situation myself, I'm trying to think about how you might have been, is that you play well enough that you think, I'll stay in here. Like there's a little bit of a seed that thinks he's going to pick me again, but really, actually, if the other guy's fit, he's more than likely going to play. Yeah. So you hope to be picked, but you almost sort of preparing yourself not to be. Yeah. But when it happens, it's still heartbreaking. Like it's still incredibly difficult to deal with.
Oh yeah, I took it. I remember I took it really badly. I remember because after me, I think it was my 8th or 9th. Again, the next game was Man United away at Old Trafford. And that's obviously somewhere where I wanted to go and play, and I got dropped for the Old Trafford game, and I was just like, so it was 2 Man United games I got dropped for, and I was just like, I remember taking that ultra badly, and but like I said, 2 or 3 days later, I had no time to mope about. I had to just get on with it. So like I said, we got on with it for the end of the season. We managed to stay up, and then obviously the second season, we all know what happened, and it was absolute carnage up at Leicester. So amazing time, but very difficult time in the same season. It was both sets of emotions.
Do you think that's the highest and the lowest that you've probably been in such a short space of time?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was absolutely on top of the world, buzzing. I don't think I changed as a person. I still think I was ultra professional. I think, I remember just being, just so solely focused on playing games in the Premier League for Leicester, and then yeah, obviously that happened the second time round, and I remember just being like totally dejected with it. Yeah, so
it's incredible how football can make you feel
mad.
like
It's
right?
mad. The feelings you can. We had a variety of feelings that you can feel playing the game. Yeah, it's crazy because, like I said, we were saying earlier, ultimately the only reason we do it is to feel that buzz on a match day. Like that's what you're working towards all week.
Do you think your experiences in your past helped you in being able to deal with that, or did you learn how to deal with that as it happened?
Yeah, I think by 27, I was numb. I was just numb to feeling them because I'd felt the extremities of buzzing, and then obviously the low extremes of being left out, becoming a third choice keeper, not being able to partake in something that I wanted to be involved in, and I think it just made me realise what the industry is like. Really, it's a very tough industry to be involved in. Also can be quite political at times, but at the end of the day, once I'm in a team where I'm playing, I get that buzz back. So, but any sort of things where it doesn't go my way, I'm numb to it now. I can accept it because I just know that's how the game is. So I'm good with that now. I've made peace of it.
I think you've obviously learned that over time throughout your career through your experiences.
It takes time,
but how best can guys, or in your opinion, can guys prepare for that before they've experienced it, or do you think you have to go through it?
I think you got to go through
that
it.
way?
Yeah, I think you got to go through a bit of pain with the lows, and I think once you've had them real bad lows, I think you then can, like I said, I'm numb to it now. So anything bad happens to me now, I just kind of I just brush it off. I've made a mistake. Okay, that's happened. Whereas before, I'd take it home with me and just go over it in my mind constantly. Whereas now, if I was playing a game, like last season, I played for Swansea, played Nottingham Forest at home, had a really good first half. Second half, I've dropped an absolute bomb in the 6-yard box. They've tapped it in. It's a big mistake, mate, in the grand scheme of things, because our ex-manager had gone to Nottingham Forest. He's come back into town. We wanted to win the game. They beat us. I just drove over and thought, yeah, I've had a howler. Right, I'm going to get over it. Right, I'll go out with the boys, have a few drinks, have a chat about it, have a laugh about it. Listen, I'm hurt that I've lost the football match, but then an hour after, I ain't going to affect it.
You're going to do hang yourself because of it. Yeah,
it's done. It's done. How can I go and have a laugh, go and blow some steam off, and then at least on the Monday you ain't what's the word for not procrastinating?
Letting it affect you. Yeah,
just not letting it affect you. Yeah, because as before, if I'd have made a mistake, I'd just be I'd just be torturing myself over it. Whereas because I've got so numb to the negative side of it, it just doesn't bother me anymore. So
it's interesting, mate, as well. The that obviously Leicester winning the Premier League season. I've had Nathan Dyer on here, and obviously he went,
brilliant guy,
amazing guy,
yeah.
So he ends up going on loan from Swansea to Leicester and ends up with a Premier League winners medal, right? And
that's low moving planet Earth, yeah.
But I'm asking him, how incredible was that he managed to be involved in a team that won a Premier League as they did? And he said, you know what? No, I actually found it really tough because I wasn't playing. Yeah. Everybody else was he said obviously he was part of a great team, but he said every week obviously the guys were winning. He wasn't really a part of it. He wasn't really playing loads of football. He was living away from his family, and I'm sort of making it I'm thinking, oh my God, this I'm going to get to ask somebody what winning the Premier League's like, and he was like, yeah, of course it was great, but actually I suffered quite a lot in that season. It's not something that people would perceive is happening.
Of course, yeah. I mean, he certainly didn't show it in the celebrations on the podium. He was having a right go. Well, that day, I was actually banned from going on the podium. There was 3 of us that weren't allowed to go up. Wasn't allowed to go up because we hadn't really been involved that season. Me, Liam Moore, and there was one more player, and Liam had been there since he was.
But had you been were you at the club that season?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I'd been on loan at the start of the season. Again, because of what had happened in the previous season, I still had the same mindset. I wanted to go and play football, so I'd been banging on the director of football's door all pre-season. He didn't want to let me go. I wanted to go. I was trying to force the move to go out on loan. I had Nottingham Forest lined up. That all ended up falling apart. I went to Bristol City, had another bad experience down there. Ended up coming back in October, and then I trained with them from October onwards for the whole season. And then so I was a part of the squad for pretty much every training day for the whole season. And obviously the boys done spectacularly well, won the league. And I remember on the day, me, Liam, and another lad weren't allowed to be a part of the celebrations, and I remember feeling really low that day as well, because I was buzzing for the lads, but I was watching them lift the trophy from, I don't know, 100 yards away. Like, I think I was upstairs in one of the boxes watching them lift the trophy, and I was thinking, obviously for the fans it's brilliant, but for someone, when you're trying to be a part of that team and you're not really allowed to celebrate with the lads, that was quite a sore moment, that was, actually. And thinking back on it, I probably think didn't affect me, but I reckon I think it did at the time, because that was only my second year at Leicester, and I still had 2 years left after that. So that was I can see where Nathan's coming from with that.
Yeah, I can imagine it's super difficult when when
you're not involved.
That you have been involved in, but then because the perception would be, going on Instagram and having a look at in a back room and trying to get some research on your career and thinking, Ben Hamer was part of the Premier League Leicester winning team, but when you actually break it down, it must have been terrible. All supporters, how amazing was that? Yeah, right. You probably got loads of people saying, it's amazing. Before, don't really feel the best, Yeah,
it's hard because you're part of that group, and like I said, when I won the league with Brentford and Chalton, because I had a hand in that and I was part of that. You feel the buzz, whereas if you're not, you don't really feel a part of it. It's not a nice feeling, I don't think, but this is part of it, isn't it? Like, it's one of them things. Like, I was buzzing. I was unbelievably buzzing for the lads that they'd achieved that, but a little bit selfishly, I was a little bit gutted that I wasn't involved in it, if that makes sense.
And did you use that, that feeling, that experience to then go up? Because most of the elite guys that we've spoken to, mate, have this incredible ability to take negative feelings and allow it to motivate them to better things.
Gives you a fire.
And the guys that don't end up, for whatever reason, like, I don't speak to them because they're not in the game. They don't play at the elite level. And it seems that all guys that are successful have had something to overcome, not just once, but like multiple times in their career.
Yeah.
How did that? What did that do to you? How did you manage to use that?
It's just every time I've had a setback, it's like a feeling in your stomach. You got like a burning desire to prove people wrong. So I said after that moment, I went back in, trained hard again. But listen, I'm now contracted to Leicester for another 2 years. Like, my career's kind of in their hands. I can say I want to go out on loan, but they wanted me there as a second choice / third choice goalkeeper. Now moving forward, they're now in the Champions League. They need more players in the squad. I can't really go out and do what I need to go and do. So I'm now part of this squad that, I'm a bit part. I've got to be positive, but I just carried on doing that. And then, madly enough, I got thrown in for a Champions League game that season when I hadn't played for 6 months. So that was a crazy one as well. And I said we got through that season, and then it was the only game I played in the whole season, that Champions League game. And then the fourth season, Craig Shakespeare took over, and he got me more involved. I had a good relationship with him, and I think I must have played another 5 or 6 games, I think, that season. And then obviously I came to that crossroads with Huddersfield.
Incredible testament to you, mate. To such a real privilege to get an insight into your career. Because sometimes you see a goalkeeper when they're number 1 and when they're number 2, or as a third choice, as you've been a little bit of. But understanding the mindset and the drive and the goals and how you've been able to achieve all that, and you've probably the last few years, I'd imagine, been frustrated that you've not been able to play as consistently as what you want to, but you're still able to have this drive and this focus of being the best possible player that you can be. And I think it's genuinely incredible.
Cheers, appreciate that. It's nice of you to say that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're almost done, mate. I've got some quicker questions, but honestly, they're quick fire, but they're more slow, to be honest.
Slow fire.
slow fire. Okay, so the first one is, what the best piece of advice that you've ever received in your career?
It's a toughie, actually. I'm trying to think back to when I was younger, what sort of advice I was given, but I think the most simple one was from Rob Blackburn when I spoke to him. He was just like what I was saying earlier about control the controllables. Like, what can you affect? How right? I can affect how I train. I can affect how I sleep. I can affect how I eat. I can affect how much effort I put into a training session. My attitude towards a training session. My personality. I can control them things like that. That can have a positive impact. Whereas if a ball wobbles in front of me and I don't catch it and it goes in, like, I can't control that. It's a technical mistake. Like, I've gone to do the right thing, but it's gone in. Don't dwell on those things. And you know, when he kind of put that into layman terms for me, where I was like, well, that sounds quite easy. So
it's almost super simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it was super simple, but then you just take that negative, take that negativity out of your mind, and it's right. I can only control it. I can control what time I go to bed. I can control what time I get up in the morning, what time I eat. I can control what I do when I get into work at the gym. I can control my attitude towards a training session. And if I do all those things right, then more often than not, I should perform when I need to perform. So that came quite late though. That came when I was about 30. So I kind of tried to work it out myself as I was going along, trying to climb through the levels. But if I knew that when I was younger, then I think mistakes just wouldn't have affected me how they affected me when I was younger. So yeah, that was a really good piece of advice, I thought.
The next one, and I'm always interested to ask this question. I think you might have touched on it already, but you know, for other people's benefit, I'm always interested in sort of the frame of mind that you were in and the feeling that you had. But what was your best performance ever?
Best performance ever. I'd have to say that Stoke game, mate, because I was on autopilot, mate. I was just confident. Just anything that's coming into my domain, I was being dominant. I was seeing things early. I think that's when you're almost anticipating. When you're in that flow state, you almost anticipate what they're going to do. By their body shape, you know, just being on the ball. And I think in that game there, it all accumulated to that point where I was going to make my first game, which was my dream, was to compete in the Premier League. And on that day, I was just on it.
See, a lot of people would, like, if they had a goal for so long that they worked so hard to achieve, as you did, would let the actual moment maybe get too much for them. It would be like there'd be too much pressure on them to perform, too much pressure on them to, I've spent all this time working at this, so it's got to go well. Yeah. Whereas, what happened? Did you just make a decision in your mind that you were just going to see everything as positive as you possibly could? Just
pure positivity from the morning I got up.
That was a decision.
I was just like, today's going to be a good day, and then got to the ground. Don't get me wrong. There's a bit of nerves there, but I had always been at Chalton because I was fresh from Chalton. I just left Chalton to go there, and this happened pretty soon after. And that was when I was free flowing constantly. I was just like I said, my best performance ever, and I'm just gliding across the goal. I'm seeing things early. I know what the strikers are going to do, and I was just in a confident headspace. And like I said, like the balls were flying into the box. I was just coming for everything, and it felt good. I was playing different football, mind you. I played better games for Swansea with the distribution side of things because last season was total football and. You know, the options that I had on the ball, whereas when I was at Leicester, I wasn't playing like that. It was more keeping the ball at net, hitting a striker. So I've definitely had a lot better games on the ball where I've looked classier, you know, in during the game. But I'd say the ultimate primary objective for the goalkeeper is to keep the ball at net, right? So that was probably the game where I thought, right, yeah, I've arrived here. I've kept the clean sheet, and I've proved to myself that I can do it. So I think I'd say that one.
We've talked about highs, we've talked about lows, but the question I've got here is, what was the most difficult moment of your career?
Man City away for Huddersfield. I'd never let 6 goals in a game, and that was the first time I'd done it away at the Etihad. And I come off after the game, and I was totally embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I felt like I wasn't worthy to be on the same pitch as some of them lads at Man City. And I remember going home and actually, feeling like that, feeling like I don't deserve to be on the same pitch as these guys. Whereas if I look at it on the whole, probably the team, me included, we as a collective we weren't good enough, and I think I shouldered a lot of the responsibility for that because obviously ultimately I'm the last line of defence, and if six balls are in the net, and don't get me wrong, since then I've seen people get done 7s and 8s there, but at the time I took it too much to heart. This is before I met this guy Rob, spoke to him, but yeah, that was the lowest point of my career. That was coming off of that pitch, losing 6-1, and I remember just going home, and I think I locked myself away. I didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to go to the shops, nothing. I was so embarrassed with it, and yeah, that was a tough one. That was, yeah.
And was it until that you spoke to this guy Rob that you managed to sort of see yourself getting over that?
Yeah, I think it was about 3 months after, because I was I was letting it affect me for a long time, because I got the next game I started and I got injured quite early on in the game against Cardiff, and I had to come off, and I was out for about 4 weeks, I think 4 or 5 weeks. I didn't play again until February, and so
that was sat on you the whole time.
It was sat on me, yeah. And I got to the point, I was living in Huddersfield as well at the time, and social media stuff was quite heavy, and yeah, I remember just not wanting to go to the shops and that, and like wearing caps and hoods and stuff like that. It was bad time, yeah, and that would all stem from that Man City game, which I at the time didn't really know, but I think I was that embarrassed by that performance that it sat heavily on me.
It's mad, isn't it, that you know, you've arguably alongside Leicester playing at the highest level that you ever have been, anything that you've ever wanted. Yeah. You go for a game against, you know, the best players in the world, and you can't, you know, of course you're not going to enjoy winning or conceding 6 goals, but you can't enjoy the level that you've managed to get yourself to because of that. And obviously, like, and fans probably don't appreciate that. That's how guys feel.
Yeah, probably not. No, because they think we're robots half the time, don't they? So yeah, I remember you just think you're there because you feel like you can compete on a level playing field. And like for me, if you're losing the game by 6 goals, there's obviously something quite ajar, isn't there? There's something not quite right. Yeah, I think that's just how it made me feel. I played twice against Man City for Leicester, and I only conceded 2 goals in 2 games. So every time I played against Man City, I'd done all right, and then I played for Huddersfield, and I felt like I wasn't at the level. But whereas probably it was a collective, but I thought it was all purely down to me. Do you know what I mean? So I was quite bad at shouldering blame on myself. This is obviously before I got this bit of advice, and realistically, that happens to everyone that goes there. Like, next week's a new game, get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, crack on. But at the time, it affected me quite badly.